There is a lie that has been told repeatedly about Israel, and once you find out how it was cooked up, you will be shocked. I'm talking about the lie that Israel is starving the people of Gaza. The prediction of imminent famine in Gaza was based on miscounting the food trucks going into Gaza. Literally, it did not take into account all of the commercial and private food deliveries to Gaza. It also excluded World Food Program deliveries to bakeries in northern Gaza. When these food deliveries are taken into account, it turns out the people of Gaza have more than enough food and calories. In other words, the claim that Israel was starving the people of Gaza only made sense if you didn't count the massive amounts of food that were entering Gaza. The truth didn't matter. There's a global campaign that seeks to stop Israel from defending itself against Hamas.
Oh, that was a funny way to say it.
In other
what did he
words,
say?
More than enough food and calories.
Well,
let me repeat yeah, that's the quote I was going for. Yeah, right. It only made sense if you didn't count the massive amounts of food. The claim though, not enough food, only made sense if you didn't count the yeah. And you said he credits you, yeah, right below. For the stats and details, see Avi Bit MD. Yeah, no, it is a good little video. So what were you saying about it?
There's a huge problem. They can't do PR. Like they just. Do
you think this is good PR?
Yes, but it's not from an official. He was a prior spokesperson for the IDF.
Okay.
He was, and he was good. Like the problem is, like all of their good spokespeople, for some reason, just end up either de-enlisting or getting fired, for bullshit political reasons. And the spokespeople they have are not that sharp, they're not that witty, they're not that bright, and a lot of times they don't even speak English well.
Why do you think it's like that?
Yeah, so I don't know. I think I have a suspicion that a lot of it has to do with nepotism as opposed to a meritocracy. Or like loyalty being priority. Like, this is one of the problems with Netanyahu. And some even say that this was the reason October 7th happened, because he has a tendency to promote people in the chain based on regime loyalty rather than competence. And so something like, and you know, the best spokespeople, for example, Alon Levy, who was a great spokesperson, actually probably their best spokesperson ever, was very sharp, bright, spoke English fluently, even had a little bit of a UK accent to make him even sound a little more intelligent on top of it. Everything. And he would debate reporters and he would own them and everything, blah, blah, blah. But he got let go because Netanyahu and his wife didn't like him, because prior to the war, he protested. He was found protesting against one of Netanyahu's policies of to revamp the Supreme Court in a certain way of Israel.
You know,
so he's prioritizing loyalty, like ideological loyalty over competence.
You know, it's funny. People say you don't criticize Netanyahu or you don't criticize your own side, but you just dropped a good criticism of Netanyahu unprompted.
Yeah, of course I did. Yeah. No, that was an insane thing. So they were looking to fire him. They just found the right excuse. So like they fired him. Like he responded to Richard Cameron's tweet about like not enough aid going into Gaza, like he disagreed with Richard Cameron. Like, no, like more than enough aid going into Gaza. Here's the data. And Richard Cameron got all offended and he talked to the Israeli government and blah, blah, blah. And then they fired Alon Levy, despite the fact that Alon Levy did not misrepresent the Israeli government position at all. Like everything he said was fully in line with what the Israeli government's policy and position was.
What was the official reason for him being fired?
It's the official reason was that he was his tweet response to Richard Cameron of the United Kingdom was inappropriate.
Amazing. Fired over mean tweet. Great.
Yeah. So, but if you actually look at that tweet, there's absolutely nothing he said that was wrong, and there's nothing he said that wasn't the Israeli government's view.
Do you have the tweet?
I can pull it up one moment.
What would you want to see done instead? I mean, obviously, at the broadest level, you're going to say something about like having more meritocracy and less nepotism. But yeah, I mean, what like
here, this was the tweet. This was it. This is a tweet. Oh shit! What did it? Hold on.
Can you just send me some weird fucking
porn? No. Hold on. Here it is.
Did you send me a photo of the tweet? Okay. Yeah. There is excess capacity.
The tweet is deleted. No, it's deleted. The tweet's deleted now. I had to send the photo.
Oh, I see. Interesting. Okay. There is excess capacity at Israel's crossing for trucks. Send trucks, they'll go in. Wait, what?
It's such a benign tweet.
And this is replying to David. Who's David Cameron? Is that the
He's
UK
like the Prime Minister of UK or whatever. Yeah.
Right. People in Gaza are in desperate need of humanitarian aid alongside the US, the UK, and the partners. Okay, but there is excess capacity at Israel's crossing for trucks. Send trucks, they'll go in. This is like exactly what you'd want a spokesperson to do, which is like a big, literally someone running another country.
He also tweeted this. He tweeted this too. I think this got deleted also.
Okay, so Alon says, Alon, I don't know how to say that. Alon says, I hope you are also aware there are no limits on the entry of food, water, medicine, or shelter equipment into Gaza, and in fact, the crossings have excess capacity. Test us. Send another 100 trucks a day to Karim Shalom, and we'll get them in. So, yeah, I mean, this is, I think, a pretty perfect reply. It's like, it's short, it's concise. He's not being, like, unreasonably aggro for someone who's in, like, an official capacity doing this. If he was at the time, I guess he was, because he said he got fired. So yeah, I mean, like this is perfect. And this is the kind of thing you should respond to also. He's not like picking a bad thing to respond to. This is like the head of a nation saying something that makes it's a sympathetic tweet, but it has a connotation to it, or at least arguably, or at least
the connotation is that Israel's not doing enough or preventing the aid from going in.
Yeah, see, it's not. I haven't read the whole. There's a bit more that I haven't read below because it's cut off in the screenshot. But he might argue that's not implied. But
there's the whole thing. Here's the whole thing.
Oh, okay. Yeah, let's see. David Cameron says people in Gaza are in desperate need of humanitarian aid. Alongside the US, the UK, and partners have announced that we will open a maritime corridor to deliver aid directly to Gaza. We continue to urge Israel... Oh, now it's explicit. Yeah, to urge Israel to allow more trucks into Gaza as the fastest way to get aid to those who need it. Yeah, you should have definitely sent me that, because that makes Alon's response even more warranted. He's directly firing shots at Israel over the trucks. With like, it's just... Yeah. It's like a negative and false implication about the exact topic that you're employed to deal with. He's a PR guy for Israel, right? That's what he said. And it's coming from an important...
He was the Israeli spokesperson at the time.
I have a hard time seeing how this tweet that he got fired over isn't actually like the apotheosis of proper performance as a PR guy.
Yeah.
Like this is literally like a paradigm case of good PR. Like the thing he's responding to is by an important person. It's a negative thing about the topic that he's supposed to do PR on. It's going to get significant views. It's a false claim. It's like, it's ticking all the boxes of like, this is exactly what you would hope their PR guy is going to deal with. Don't you think?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, so that is wild.
Yeah, and so obviously it wasn't about that. Like, and it's come out later that it wasn't about that.
Oh, did it? How did it come out?
Well, there were news reports about it that basically that basically pointed out that they were trying to fire him months ago before this tweet even happened, and they basically just used this as an excuse.
So it's sort of like an induction, like there's some prior evidence of them trying to fire him, and just how baseless this seems, plus that prior evidence sort of makes it seem
and
like
Alon Levy himself has retweeted those has retweeted those reports.
Yeah, right. I see. Yeah, so that's like at least a reasonable basis for thinking that they were just trying to get rid of him. Yeah. That's interesting. So I guess you think this is a significant failing here by the Israeli government, I guess. Not just like this specific case. Obviously this case alone, actually, because you just said this, you think he was one of their best PR guys. And as far as I can tell, he's doing a pretty good job. So this alone is significant, but I guess you think this is symptomatic of a bigger trend that really is coming at it's like, how do I say this? You think this is systematic of a bigger problem that really is making Israel like lose or do needlessly poorly in the PR war, and the PR war is actually like very important.
Yes, exactly.
So what's your prescription to fix it? If you have
Well, my prescription to fix it is actually fairly simple. It's to base the job positions on a meritocracy rather than government loyalty.
That I anticipated it would be that, because that's the most general level. Is there anything more specific to say about it, or do you really just think you just have to work out how to implement that?
Well, there may be some working on it, implement, like some metrics of like how favorable it are, how like polls based on how convincing they think the person is. But all of those are just metrics on performance, which was great. That's what you want. Not metrics based on how much does he agree with my policies. Because even if you don't agree with the government's policies, you can still be an effective spokesperson by saying, okay, well, I can still direct you to what they say. I'm not speaking for myself.
Yeah,
I am a government spokesperson. I'm speaking for them, and so I'm going to give you their case.
It's not about alignment with the policies. It's just about there's some effect you're trying to have on people with the things that you're saying, and you want to measure to what degree different strategies or people or whatever are having that effect, right? And then optimize for the ones that are to the greatest degree. Right. That doesn't require
because Alon Levy, because Alon Levy really, was way more progressive than Netanyahu. And did not agree with a lot of Netanyahu's policies. But as a government spokesperson, he never got into that because he's just being a government spokesperson. He's just speaking for what they say and what their case is.
Right. Yeah. It's like a level of like insularness and need for like political alignment or something that if you have a standard like that, you're just going to cut out a whole ton of valuable people. You don't need Alon Levy to be politically aligned to do PR in such a way that it yields outcomes like on objective metrics that you care about that are better than, some other method.
Exactly.
And this is sort of why I asked you to be a bit more specific than just saying whether it's
well, if I can give you specifics, I would rehire Alon Levy. I would
well, before you give this, because just the reason I said that is because when you say like the problem is that there's, or at least a big part of the problem is that there's not enough meritocracy, there's nepotism. That implies a solution, which is obviously more meritocracy, less nepotism. So, any non-brain dead person can infer that much about what your solution is, but it's good to get a bit more clarity. Like what you want is actually, when you say meritocracy, the way that you picture implementing something like that is like, we sit down, we find out what metrics we actually care about. Like we assign some team of researchers maybe research is the wrong word, but some kind of like body of people, like a little organization to generate some kind of metrics that we can converge on, that we agree about. And then we do actual outcome-based research on what kinds of optical strategies or PR strategies optimize for those outcomes. And then based on those results, we put more of our resources into those kind of strategies. Like you mean something like that. You don't mean we just loosely go like, oh, this guy seems like he's like doing a good, like you mean something very specific and technical. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, that's the sort of
meritocracy is a buzzword where people don't really get, like people don't always understand what's meant there. They don't always understand you're saying something rigorous when you say that.
Gotcha. Yeah. Rigorous meritocracy.
Yeah.
Is what I advocate for. Yeah. I mean,
bring Alon back. What have
bring Alon
metrics.
back. I would try to get Doron Spielman back as well, because he had a very good effect. He's also a great debater, sharp, including in the moment. Definitely never bring Avi Hyman back, because he was a complete fail, especially on Piers Morgan. He let him I don't know if you saw that when he let him completely steamroll him. That was a horrible performance.
I didn't. I'd be curious to hear about that. But you actually would want to purge some bad PR people in addition to bring in good.
This is probably the one PR person that they probably fired or made him resign. That was the right decision.
Who'd you say you debated on Piers? Is Piers himself?
Yeah, it was Piers versus Avi Hyman.
And Piers is like at best, maybe like a yellow 2-stripe. Like, I don't think I'd say
exactly.
Piers is even
something like that,
belt.
Like low to mid, bordering between low to mid tier.
Yeah, very like not an impressive debater at all.
Very milk toast debater.
Right.
And I don't know if you saw the segment.
I don't think I did. I might have not registered his name. I might remember.
Maybe I think you should.
Send it to me. I'll watch that shit. It sounds funny.
Morgan, Avi Hyman.
We'll do what we have to do to go after.
Oh, here it's not long. It's not long. You can do it now, and we'll talk about it.
Okay. Yeah. Let me copy the link. 1 second. I can't open it directly with my browser because it opens in the wrong browser right now. So we're doing it by hand. Okay. It's 5 minutes. You want to just sit there for 5 minutes?
Yeah, that's fine. I'm playing a video game.
Okay.
We'll do what we have to do to go after Hamas, to avoid civilian casualties, something that we have successfully done. Out of that Hamas number that you just gave, more than 14,000 are terrorists that we took out. There's more than 25,000 Hamas and Islamic Jihad terrorists taken off the
How many civilians do you believe you've killed?
We don't have exact figures, as you know, it's the fog of war.
But you've got exact numbers for Hamas terrorists you've killed. Why wouldn't you know how many civilians you've killed?
Because obviously our focus is to go after the Hamas terrorists. And
hang on, I mean, that does imply that you're putting a bigger premium on killing Hamas terrorists in terms of numbers and accountability than you are on innocent civilians. That can't be right, surely. If you know exactly how many Hamas...
Avi, do you want me to play it through the speakers so you like kind of...
Yeah, you can,
remember it so you can say shit about it after?
Yeah, do that.
Okay. Yeah, because I'm going to watch this and then it'll all be fresh in my mind and then you'll remember 1 or 2 little tidbits and then it's like, why'd I watch 5 minutes? Okay, let me play it through the speakers 1 second.
Hamas terrorists you've killed, you must know how many civilians you've killed. Otherwise, you're prioritizing the lives of terrorists over innocent people.
Piers, with respect, don't put words into my mouth, please. I didn't say exactly 14.
That's loud enough, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
1,000. I said around 14,000. Whereas Hamas will come out with precise numbers that statisticians will look at.
Give me a ballpark number for civilians.
Well, you can use the ballpark as far as the Hamas figures, which I reject as being false.
Well, if they're false, why would you give me those?
I gave you the numbers that I had.
No, you've told me you know how many Hamas terrorists you've killed, but you don't seem to have any idea how many civilians you've killed. I'm just bemused. Why wouldn't you keep count of both?
I don't have that information to give you, Piers. If I did, I would.
You've literally no idea how many civilians you've been killing.
I can tell you definitively that our aim is to go after Hamas.
No, hang on. I'm sorry to push you on this. That's quite extraordinary. You're an official spokesman for the Israeli government, and you have no idea how many civilians you've killed. I thought you just told me that you were particularly careful about not killing civilians. But if you don't know how many you've killed, how can you say that with any certainty?
Because even if you were to go by a ratio of the Hamas figures, we would still be far ahead of any Western army.
That wasn't my question. You know it wasn't my question.
I don't have the information.
Well, you literally have no idea how many civilians you've killed.
It's not that I don't know. I'm not authorized to give the information. I don't have the information.
That's complete nonsense. Why are you authorized to give me the number of terrorists you've killed, but not the number of civilians? I don't understand. Can you explain?
Piers, we will go after Hamas. We will ensure that we
But you want me to believe you're being incredibly careful about how many civilians you're killing, and you have an amazing exemplary record, but you don't know how many civilians you're killing. So how do I know you've been careful?
Piers, when the dust settles, we will come out with the proper numbers. Hamas runs to the press daily with false.
When the dust settles, a lot of people will have died, and you know how many Hamas you've killed, but you don't know how many civilians you've killed. And I'm just asking you why. Why is it you've kept a record of one, but not the other?
I personally don't have that information to give to you. You can ask me over and over. I'm not going to come up with more information. I don't personally.
You don't know.
I don't have that information for you today.
But you're an official government spokesman for the Israeli government, and you have no idea.
Piers, I came on here to focus on what's going on with the war.
Well, actually, you came on here to answer my questions, I think.
Yeah, and I don't have an answer for you for that.
And I didn't intend to press you on this point because I assumed that you would not respond the way you have. But I've never had an Israeli spokesman who simply said, I have no idea. Particularly after you boasted about the fact that you've been very smart in the way you've avoided killing civilians. How do you know if you've got no idea how many you've killed? You come on here as the official Israeli government spokesman, and you don't want to be asked how many you've killed because you don't know. And yet you want us to draw comparisons to other conflicts in a positive way for Israel. And you want to tell me that IDF make a record of every single thing they're involved in, but they don't give it to you, the government spokesman, so that when I ask you, you have no idea. Do you understand how ridiculous that sounds? With respect.
With all due respect, I've told you that even if you were to use the Hamas figures, the ratio would still be better than any other army. And that's where the comparison can be done. However, we know above and beyond that the Hamas figures are not accurate. And we know from former conflicts that Hamas throws in anyone that's, someone could have passed away from a heart attack. Someone could have.
So why is it that Israel actually, after previous,
that's what they've done in the past.
Well, why is it after previous death tolls have been released by Hamas through the Palestinian Health Authority, they've actually turned out to be ones that Israel has concurred with in the main? Can you not count either?
Piers, we're in the fog of war. We're fighting for our very existence.
No, you're not foggy when it comes to killing terrorists. You're only foggy, it seems to me, when it comes to killing civilians.
Yo, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear.
Oh, let me turn you off the speaker. Okay, I have like a ton of things I could say about that. Do you want to say some stuff first, or you want me to say some stuff?
Yeah, you say some stuff first, then I'll give you my take, because I'm curious what your take is.
That silence was insane.
Yeah.
That was crazy. That was a very awkward moment. It also seemed, I'd have to re-listen to see if this is right, but it seemed like he switched from saying that he sort of didn't know to that he knew but couldn't say. So it sort of came off like, did I miss something, or is that what happened?
No, he did shift for that. And I suspect he that's not true either. And even if it's not.
Wait, let me keep before you unload things. Let me just say one or two more.
Yeah.
Okay, so and that looks very Weasley because it looks like he's lying. And then another, there's just one more I wanted to say, and then sorry, I'll let you go. Fuck, I forgot it. Whatever. Sorry, go ahead.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, I mean, first of all, this is what being a failure as a spokesperson looks like.
Oh, I did remember. Sorry, he went on. He said he's making a point about Israel performing. I don't know the absolute numbers, or I do, but I can't tell you whatever. But relative numbers compared to other conflicts, we're doing better than everyone. Isn't that also an exaggeration? Like, you're doing better than a lot of cases. You're definitely nowhere near the like genocide territory or all these like other numbers when we look at certain metrics like civilian casualty ratio and stuff. But the idea that you're superior to any other performance of anyone ever is
that's an exaggeration. But it's also not answering the question,
which is a bigger problem.
Yeah, like he didn't ask you how you're doing relative to other people. He's asking you how many civilians you killed.
Right. Okay. Well, here. And I guess. Yeah. I guess there's a question about is it important that he be able to give a absolute estimate there? And it sort of seems like you should. Like, I mean, I certainly it doesn't look good to have no fucking clue how many people you're killing.
Yeah.
Like that's not a good look.
Right.
I think that there's like sophistry someone could do. Like, you go too far, you could be like, oh, like, do you know the exact number? And like, these two numbers do it. Like, it's fine. Just
and he tried to sort of not Pierce, but he tried to, like, the way he answered in the beginning was as if Pierce asked him exactly, and he never asked him exactly.
Oh, I didn't catch.
He's like, I can't give you. Yeah, in the beginning he was like, I can't give you an exact number, but he was never asked to give an exact number.
He was kind of doing part of the right thing also, which is he was trying to do a bit of a steel man. He was going like, even if you take the Hamas numbers, I can still get to my conclusion.
Right.
That would be good, but is your
conclusion? But his conclusion wasn't answering the question. What he should have done was say, what he should have said is like, oh, like, I do have some idea of what it is. It's lower than this number.
Right. It's not
that I have no idea. It's some value lower than at the time it would be like well, even Hamas doesn't release their civilian casualties. They don't differentiate, but you can do an estimation. You say like, okay, well, it's lower than this total figure because they include civilians and militants. So it's some value lower than 30,000 or something like that.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it was just not good because it looked like he couldn't answer. He lied probably because he gave different answers at different times that are like definitely incompatible. Like what are you saying? Are you saying you don't have the information, or are you saying you can't share the information? Those are like clear different things, right? Yeah. And then at the end, he just got kind of like stubborn of like just making it obvious he was just not going to answer. But a good PR person should have. Well, I mean, I think in this case they should have actually. If they did their due diligence, they actually should have had some kind of response to give to Pierce. There, you should have some fucking idea how many people you're killing. But yeah, I mean, even say like, because you can always somehow have something happen where you do your due diligence, but shit gets fucked. So even say you are a good PR guy and you get in that situation, he's asking you for this number, you don't have it. I think that there's probably a graceful way to cut your losses. Like, nothing's going to look that good in that situation because you should like know this, but there's ways to cut your losses that aren't as bad as just shutting down, right? That looks like really bad. Like, you could just say, you know what? I don't have that piece of data. And I'll even go as far as to say that it would be good to have that going forward, and I will going forward. So I can't answer that, but I think that
we'll try to have that going forward. He can't make promises on behalf of the Israeli government.
That's
yes.
Right. Yeah, sure. Sorry. Yeah, right. He's a government person. I'm used to thinking from the point of view of being just a YouTube guy. But yeah, he's representing an organization. It's a bit different. Yeah, so we'll try to have
there is more damage control he could have done.
I'm still going. Wait, let me a bit more damage control. Another again, he shouldn't get in this situation in the first place. You should know the data, but if you're there, another thing you can do is you can try to go like, look, I admit to you that's a thing I don't know. So there's nowhere to go with that because I just don't have what you're asking for. That's fine. I will try to have that going forward. But we can still try to have a productive conversation. We have a chunk of time here. Presumably the reason you're asking is because of some kind of concern around the justness of the war, and I can give other points in favor of the justness of the war or the our performance being a certain way or whatever. So to grant what needs to be granted, even if it's just a provisional kind of like, I don't know that right now, I have a suspicion I'm going to turn out being right, I don't know, even like that, grant what needs to be granted. Don't avoid or refuse to engage with what needs to be granted. Then just try to refocus the conversation on something where you both have a mutual goal of like resolving it, like finding out if the war is just or if the performance has been appropriate or whatever. And just say I can make other arguments, and you still probably want to hear my other cases, even if I don't have that one to make right now, right?
Yeah.
Did you have PR damage control you want to add?
Yeah. Well, I'll do it in 3 layers because I consider this performance to have on content 3 major fails. I mean, total fails were like numerous, but 3 major ones on content. One was not knowing what the number was when there was an available one you could derive, not repeat or regurgitate, but at least derive. So. At the time of this interview, Netanyahu had gone on record saying that they killed 13,000 militants with a civilian casualty ratio of about like 1.2 or something. Now,
say that again.
I don't believe that.
Sorry, sometimes when I hear numbers, they don't register. Just say that number again.
Yeah. So then at the time of this interview, Netanyahu had gone on record saying that Israel had killed 13,000 militants with a civilian casualty ratio of 1.2.
Oh, so you can calculate it, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So, so it's true, there is no civilian figure to literally regurgitate at the time of this interview. However, based on the statements Netanyahu made as a government spokesperson, side note, I don't accept that civilian casualty ratio that Netanyahu gave. I don't believe him. But as a spokesperson, what I would do is
too high or the too low direction.
No, I think it's too low. I think he's overselling.
Okay.
Not that I think civilian casualty ratio is a good metric to begin with, but I think he's overselling the civilian casualty ratio. But if I were an Israeli government spokesperson, what I would do is I would say, yes, we do have a derivable estimate because Netanyahu said this. So the figure is about 16,000 civilians.
Right. Generate rather than regurgitate.
Yeah. So so some of these, he only, like, so there's nothing to regurgitate, but I have the mind to be able to derive it. Okay. So that's the optimal answer. The optimal situation is he would have had the foresight to be able to use math and actually, or know know what his prime minister has said, and B, have the critical thinking skills and mathematical abilities to be able to derive the answer from that.
Another thing, I know you're going for content, but he might have those, but also might not have enough mental RAM if he's feeling too much pressure, like doesn't know how to cope with the situation.
Yeah. And just be able to take a breath and be like, okay, well, can I answer this question? Let me think.
Because on content, that's what he should do, but the reason he failed on content there might not be incompetence with math. It might be just...
I know, I think it was. I do suspect it was.
Well, then that...
No, not incompetence with math. Not incompetence with math. I think he just wasn't aware of the statement that his prime minister made.
Oh, okay. All right.
I think he just wasn't aware of that. I don't know if he would have done well on math either. I don't know if he would have actually thought to do that. Like, you have to actually think to do that.
Yeah, I'm just pointing out there's another potential source of the failure than not having the competence or the information. Right. You think it's probably not the information. You also worry it might not have the math competence, but can also just be a psychological thing about it's very hard for people to understand if you haven't actually done live high pressure debate with somebody who's trying to get you on something. Like, you have to be able to be very.
But then again, that's part of being a spokesperson too. You have to be used to those high, stakes interviews.
You have to be able to be totally calm and have most of your mind free to think, except the little bit you need to set aside to track the conversation. Like, you want to have your mind free there. You can't be spazzing out. You should be able to enter basically like a flow state and just chill. If you're truly a good PR person, a truly good person at anything should pretty much be in a flow state when they're doing it, right? So
yes,
he should, if he's a good PR guy, be in a flow state, not in a jammed up, worried, can't think straight kind of state. That is part of being a good PR guy.
Right. So, okay, so that's one. So now the question is, okay, well, if he didn't have that information, or if he couldn't calculate it in the moment, what would he have done? What would I have done instead if I was in a situation where I was facing that? Okay, if I'm in the non-ideal situation where I can't answer, so I would say, look, I don't have an exact number, but I can give you some idea. I do have some idea about it, and it's less than this number. It's less than 30,000, which is the number Hamas is reporting at the time. The reason we know it's less than 30,000 is because Hamas reports both civilians and militants. And so clearly, and we don't really trust their numbers, but even the fact that we don't trust their numbers doesn't mean we can't make inferences about what our view is, because we already considered that to be too high to begin with, and it also includes militants. So clearly, we have some idea of the civilians we're killing, and that is some value less than this number. Right. So it's not true that I have no idea. I clearly have some idea. Now we could look to get a more precise estimation, but we do have some estimation.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the second tier. Now, if I can't even do that, if I wasn't even able to do that for whatever reason, I think he should have absolutely been able to do that, and he tried to do that a little bit. There was one period where he was he almost did it, but
where
he
was that?
drew it. he said, even if you take the Hamas numbers,
right?
And then he was like, what he was trying to go. So he said, even if you take the Hamas numbers, we're doing better in the ratio than anyone else. First of all, it doesn't answer the question. He could have said, even if you take the Hamas numbers, we have some idea because we can use it. And then you would have had an easy response to say, well, if they're Hamas numbers and you don't trust them, why are you using them? It's because just because we don't trust them. Just because you don't trust them in a given direction doesn't mean you can't use them to have some idea, because we don't trust them in a direction we know.
Yeah, they give you like an upper bounds on how bad your behavior could be if in the worst case where everything your enemy says about you is true. Yeah. And if you come out not being a bad guy on that interpretation even, then that's going to be wild. But obviously if it's bad enough, you have to fight the empirics there.
Yeah. So even if that's would be the non-optimal answer I would give. I would just give some bound, and say I still have some idea, and we can look to improve our estimation, but I have some idea. And then even if I couldn't do that, even if I had to say I have no idea for whatever reason, which is wild, I would say a lot of the things you said. I would say like, okay, well, yes, we really should have an idea, and I will try to I'll grant that, and I'll look to say that. However, what I do want to say is that just because one of the things Pierce said was that, well, if you're caring more about the militants because you have such an estimation of how many militants you killed, but no idea how many civilians you killed. I would say, like, just because we have that doesn't mean we value the lives of those militants more than the civilians.
Value ending the lives of them more than preserving.
But the point is that, like, just because I would say just because like there is more epistemic certainty around one figure than another doesn't mean it's because we care about what's being picked out by the figure than the other. It could just be because that's the way the military works. It's just like most of your intelligence is on those militants, not the civilians.
I want to hear the third tier too, but this is just also a perfect time to emphasize the original point about when we were talking about Alon, of like Pierce is, maybe like a yellow belt with 2 stripes or something. It's like, this is the kind of thing that if you understand like sort of basic formal logic, you're not gonna say things like that, because that's just an obviously bad inference, right? It's like it just doesn't follow from the fact that you have this number and not that number that you care more about this thing than that.
Right.
Be explained by a million things. But the thing is, if you know formal and I do want to hear point 3, sorry, but just have to say this. If you know formal logic, that is obvious to you by the form of the sentence, so it's really easy to notice every time. If you don't, then you kind of have to like it's like harder to this is obvious. It's harder to notice when you're making a bad inference. Once you know the form of the thing, you don't end up saying as many things like that. So yeah, this just further speaks to like, if you have some basic competence in these things, you should be able to undermine peers like very easily.
So yeah, so the third tier is just to point out like, hey, even the mere fact, like, I agree with you, we should have a better idea, or hey, we should have some idea in this case about what it is. But the fact that we have no idea about one number and an idea about another number doesn't mean we care more about it. It just means it's more easily epistemically accessible. That's all. It just means there's more information about it. And the reason there's more information doesn't either have to be that we care about it more than the other. It's just the way that's. Yeah, it's because that's what.
Mean that it's well, it depends how you define that.
I know what you mean. It
just means we currently have epistemic access to it for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Maybe that's because it was easier to access. Maybe that's because someone else did the work for. Like, who the fuck knows? Maybe it's a fluke.
It just the point being is just that, like, in the way wars are waged, like, you have a lot of, like, because the civilians are, like, the pool of civilians are so much larger than the militants, and we're trying to kill the militants. That's where most of the intelligence is being looked at. Militants are the ones being tracked, not every single civilian. Militants are the primary. Yeah, I mean, so there's more intelligence around militants than there are civilians, and that's true for every intelligence.
Well, so now you're offering a possible explanation for having one over the other, which is...
No, I'm just giving one possible explanation as just an intuition. But the point is that... The point is that it just...
Sorry.
Yeah, the reason being is the reason I would do that as a PR person is because a lot of people like wouldn't understand the formal logic and why it doesn't follow. So I would just give an intuition pump for the audience about why.
To be clear, I'm not saying you should use formal logic in the conversation directly. I'm saying Piers is a noob because Pierce would be less likely to say something like that if he knew formal logic, because it's just an obviously bad inference. No, I think if it came to dismantling that, I think it depends what you want to do. If you're just debating and you want to put the burden on the other guy, just be agnostic, ask them to establish it. But if you're doing PR, you want to be like optimally, you want it to like look optimal or whatever.
So I would point both points. I would say, look, that point doesn't follow just because we don't know one thing.
Sorry, I lost my train of thought, and then you snagged it there. Just 1 second. Like I was just saying. Yeah, so that's the first thing, obviously, which is just to point out what you said doesn't follow. In theory, there could be a ton of so this is using formal logic, but without you don't say it and then lose everyone doesn't understand what you're saying. You just say it like this, which is it's like a formal logic point not said formally, right? It's like that it doesn't really follow, right? There could be a whole ton of reasons why we have the one number and not the other. It doesn't have to be that we care about one group more than the other. And then, of course, the next layer of pushback is to actually give an intuition pump so everyone can see how it could be the case, really obviously.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So that's your three layers are basically layer 1 is it's like medicine. It's like layer 1 is prevention. You just do actual good research so you don't have to worry about this in the first place, and you do the relevant get the relevant experience to be able to operate in a situation like that. So step 1 is just prevention. Step 2 is like it's too late. Now we have to deal with it. So step 2 is like management once you're already in the shitty situation. And your basic strategy there is like try to go for a generated number rather than a regurgitate one, because there's not one to regurgitate.
No, but try to go for a bounded number rather than a generated number. The first layer involved a generated number.
Try to go for a bounded number rather than a generated number.
A generated one.
Okay, sure. I didn't even realize those were ordered, but in various ways, try to answer the question. Try to provide some information on it, but okay, so second layer is like try your best to provide as much information as you can on the thing, so it's clear you're engaging, clear you're being good faith, whatever. And then third layer is like you literally have nothing to say at all. And what was the third layer again?
You can play. The third layer is to do damage control in the following ways: to acknowledge when you should have more information, but also to dispel any arguments against like implications about not having that information.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So I really, to be honest, I would think of that like 2 tiers. There's just prevent it in the first place, and then there's manage it, and then there's just various management strategies. And maybe you could order them in importance, like which you should drop first. But
the tiers are I view it as prevention, treatment, and damage control.
What's the difference between treatment?
Like treatment of the disease. Like the disease, there's a disease here, but we have a treatment. So we can at least treat it.
And then if you can't treat it, how to cope with the situation anyway.
Yeah, how to cope with your patient dying. It's like, okay, we can't treat it. We lost our patient. The patient died, but that doesn't mean we hated our patient.
Right. Yeah. Okay, I understand that. Yeah, and that's good. And yeah, I mean, I think the really important thing. Yeah, well, if I go all the way to the really important thing, it'll be talking about a whole ton of like debate strategy stuff. But like, I guess just one really important point here is just like when you're doing stuff like this, an important thing is like just where you're coming from, like emotionally in the situation, and what your intentions are. And I just think that in a situation like that, when you really fucked up, you don't have the answer at all. If you truly do have good intentions and you want to be truthful and you can have good, honest presentation, and you can just clearly communicate this somehow. You don't have to say it in this complicated way, but you have to get this point across, which is like, there are questions we would both like to have answered. This one got fucked for whatever reason. We can still productively discuss all these other things. Or it could be, we can talk still about the same question, but I can't address that one argument. I can just give these other ones. It's like a productive, well-intentioned, like refocusing of the conversation so you can still make progress. It can't be super self-serving where you just veer away from anything that he'd want to talk about. But, you know, finding some ground where you can still make your points that you want to make while like taking the blow, rather than let the blow just like annihilate you and you're just fucked, like literally nothing to say and just like dodging completely.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, I just think if I wanted had anything else about that. Yeah, it's right. Those are the three. I mean, and of course there's all the other things. I mean, those are the three major things. Of course, all the other things didn't help either. Just like freezing up, shifting, like almost like in the heat of the moment, trying to change your answer to something that probably was not true.
Yeah, that looks like, really bad.
Like I don't think he was given like that information and not authorized to disclose it. Mm-hmm. That doesn't happen because, first of all, the reason I know that doesn't happen is because there was a mathematically derived statement that was public at the time. So clearly it was in the public, and the number Israel officially came out with matched that number. Mm-hmm. So I actually know that's probably not true because I infer it could technically possibly be true, but I'm inferring that's not true because it was the estimate was mathematically derivable for the public at the time. So I highly doubt the Israeli government just told him what it was and said, "You're not allowed to tell anyone this." When Netanyahu himself, because Netanyahu himself gave a statement that revealed it, basically.
Yeah, it seems too convenient when he says it. It seems like a switch of answer when like the first answer wasn't panning out, and given the context of it already being publicly available, it doesn't make sense really that they would have like given it to him and told him he can't share it. Like, it just seems like he's lying. And the thing is, like, I'm very understanding of people, honestly. Like, when someone lies, I don't, especially in a high pressure situation like this. Like, granted, he should have the skills to navigate this, and he doesn't. But you know, I don't think it means he's like a terrible person or anything. I think that people can fall into like defense mechanisms or like weird like behaviors that they learned in like childhood or something, even when they're like put in on the spot, like in a situation like this. Like, he probably just felt a lot of pressure, felt like it wasn't working out. Maybe he didn't even totally think about if it's true. Maybe he didn't like deliberately lie, but just kind of like reach for, like, it could be something kind of like that, which is more human and understandable. Like, he doesn't have to be a bad guy because of it, but yeah, you can't, it's not a good performance though. So I'm making like a separate statement about his character versus the performance.
Yeah, exactly. No, I don't think it's badly reflected. I think he's a good guy.
Yeah, because when I say he's lying, it might sound like I'm really shitting on him. So I just want to kind of be like, look, I mean, that normally it sounds like, oh, you lied, you're an asshole, but it's like, it's hard to understand until you've been in those situations how easy it is to like accidentally fuck up and do something like that, you know? A lot of people would fuck up in similar ways if they were put in a high pressure situation. So I'm just pointing out it's understandable. But that doesn't mean it's excusable in the sense that the government should like put up with it. Like, you shouldn't be hiring people who don't have the right competence, obviously.
No, of course. And you know, to their credit, like, he was basically, I suspect he was let go after that.
Fair, yeah. Yeah, okay. Well, yeah, so I guess the big takeaway here is that Israel is not doing as well as it could be doing in the PR war. Would you go as far as to say it's losing the PR war or losing some local context?
They almost always lose the PR war.
Okay.
No, it's insane if Israel were to ever win a PR war.
Okay. So the takeaway here is like Israel is doing poorly in, or on your view, actually losing. I just don't know enough to like really comment, but it could very well be they're losing. Israel's not doing great in the PR war, and there's a procedure here to do better, which is to employ outcome-based, like evidence-based PR, essentially. It's what you're talking about, rather than whatever they're currently doing, which seems like maybe some blend of like nepotism and some other bullshit, maybe some meritocracy. You just want to see evidence-based, meritocratic kind of PR going on within Israel, and you think that would do wonders. Basically, because if there is like a small army of like Alons and Dorons, I don't know how to say these Israeli names, man. But if there is a small army of people like
Alon, Doron,
Doron, Alon. If there's an army of people like this, you'd expect like a meaningful change in public perception, basically. So, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So we should implement such policies.
And in many cases, they're doing the opposite. They're getting rid of basically the best people, and you know, the people they have. A lot of the people they have do not speak proper English.
That's
can't
really
even
bad.
Yeah.
You can't do international PR while not fluently speaking the international tongue.
Yeah.
It's just not like that's such a basic thing to fuck up.
Yeah. Many of their spokespeople and the people they have at the United Nations, even like they speak such broken English.
There should be an emphasis on clear English.
Or very thick, heavy accent. It's to the point the wording is not exactly right, and it's
logical errors, there's a ton of things that come from not having good English. Logical errors, less relatable. Like I mean, just it's not great. You want it to be like, this could be like my neighbor saying something to me right now. Like you want to just immediately like when you hear from someone like this, you want to be able to just click into what they're saying and really get where they're coming from. You don't want to feel like I don't know how to verbalize this, but like it's harder to relate when someone's really culturally different in how they're presenting. It feels just more foreign. And is foreign, but that's like part of the task of the PR people is to bridge that divide so that you're relatable, right? So there's a relatability thing. I don't know if you agree with that. You can tell me. And then there's also an actual like what you're literally saying thing. Like you will not say things as well as you could if you don't know the language. You will actually sometimes not only say things suboptimally, but actually say things in ways that are needlessly wrong because you don't know the language.
No, that's true as well, and I've seen some examples of this. They also are like somewhat unhinged. Like they're
both aspects are true. I know you think the second one's true.
Both aspects are in this are definitely true.
I could see someone disagreeing with the relatability and just saying you're racist and you should or something. Like I don't fucking know. Like
no, of course,
everyone equally immediately. It's like obviously you can relate more to someone who's more like you in their presentation and across a whole range of like traits.
Yeah. Yeah, it just reminds me of like that time. Sorry. That Arabic person was defending Israel. That son of Hassan guy. And he went on to peers and he was like, "Listen, this is war. In war, the people die."
Oh, that's so awesome. You said that was unhinged sometimes. Like, was that what you're talking about?
Yeah, I remember like he took like the Israelis person like took the UN charter in front of. Now I actually agree with this, but I wouldn't do this in his position, in a formal position. But,
did he rip it or burn it or eat it or something?
Yeah, he put it in a shredder. He brought a mini shredder.
Oh, that's so funny. And the reason you would support this, at least the sentiment behind it, not the action, because the action reads in a bad way, but well, at least arguably does, because a lot of people have a positive perception of the UN. Is just because you think the UN is notoriously biased against Israel in a way that's like
absolutely
easily objectively measurable with like their resolution.
Oh yeah, I think it's a terrible organization. So I absolutely support shredding them. But if I was hired for a job to try and win them over, or at least mitigate their bad perception of me as much as possible, shredding their charter is not something I would do on the job.
I do love how much of a like not giving a fuck that is, but yes, I agree. Like that's not gonna resonate probably with the majority of people. It's pretty aggro.
Yeah, it's just like about, hey, like what is your job? If my job is to try. Okay, my job is to. A lot of people don't. It's like they're not thinking about what their job description is when they do certain things.
Right.
they're doing just what they want to do.
That's what you mean by unhinged. They're not hinged by the job you're actually hired for constraints or something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the hinge, like when you're on the job, your hinge is your job description.
Right.
But this is something, if he just did that off the job on his own time, I would have no problem. But if he's on the job to like represent the interests of Israel to the United Nations in a way where he's supposed to be like, a diplomat to them, and he's supposed to.
Obviously.
It's like
this is more the kind of thing you do if you're like, I'm a independent content creator and I want to make like a strong statement to all the people who are kind of like already in my camp for us all to like kind of laugh about and rally over. Like that could be a context that makes more sense. But in a olive branchy public servant, connect to the other side, be relatable to everybody, it's like, no, I mean, it would be like if you like were like burning the Quran or something like that. It's like there's at least some sentiments under which the Quran is burned that I agree with the action. Like I don't have a problem with that. But if you were trying to like, if you're like the ambassador,
hey, we need to make peace between Jews and Muslims. Like,
yeah, it's like let's start by burning. A good strategy: let's burn both holy books and just wipe the slate clean. Like, yeah, probably not great. Great in principle. Like, I could see myself sitting there lighting like maybe what's the Jewish one, the Torah and the Quran both on fire, and then symbolically being like, this is nice. But yeah, that would be like a very bad. That'd be like a horrible PR strategy, yeah. And this is like on par kind of with that. It's probably not as bad, but still.
Well, exactly. Like this is like, so I can recognize that I agree with it, but this is actually an insane thing to do for the job title.
It's like if you hired like Vegan Gains to be your PR guy. Like, I mean, I would love Vegan Gains as the PR guy of Israel. Like, that would be great. I would get a kick out of it. But
but that's nuts. Like, you would just go and say, "Hey, no, we should kill more civilians. We should be targeting more. We need to genocide them." And by the way, they're not even vegan. Like,
yeah, right. And the thing is, I don't think he would even. I could be wrong. Maybe he would disagree. I almost want to ask him. Like, I almost want to. I don't know. Is he online right now? Whatever. But I feel like he would probably. This is my guess at what his view would be. He would probably say that there's people who really resonate with and understand what he's saying, and he really believes and feels what he's saying. But if the role is just to be as palatable to the maximal amount of people as possible, that probably is not an optimal strategy to be that
within the UN.
Yeah, right. Like in an official kind of context or whatever. Yeah, so he might disagree with that. I don't know, but I suspect you grant that, and I'm inclined to agree with that. Like even with veganism and stuff, I mean, I'll say some aggro things, and I really like some of the aggro people, but I'm not sold on that being the best way to communicate with the average person. I mean, I think that there's a very clear, direct way where you are speaking clearly about the atrocities that can communicate with the average person, but I'm talking the like when you have someone just saying like "fuck Karnas," like you're like extremely evil asshole. It's like there's times when those things can be said in a righteous way, and it's the right thing to do. But I think coming in off the rip with that can be harsh. And to be clear, I don't think Vegan Gains does that actually. I like at all. I'm not saying that, but I think he would understand that there's like a spectrum there, and he'd probably agree that there's better like for general PR kind of strategies, even if there's specific context where what he would prefer is ideal. But yeah, it would be like, so I say that all just because Richard's my friend and I don't want to be throwing him under the bus because I agree with him on quite a lot of this, but yeah, it would be like hiring Vegan Gains to do your PR. Like that's just not the right guy for the job. Like you can't have someone who's gonna like, I mean, just think of the way he makes his points. Like he made points about B12 by like just downing like a bottle of B12 or something, right? Like most people, if they see that, are gonna be like, holy shit, like this guy's like really intense.
Yeah. No, absolutely. So yeah, the Israeli guys, they have.
I blame people for being normies for that, not Vegan Gains for having an actual personality.
Right.
I think
but yeah, I mean, I think
that. Yeah, sorry. Go on.
Yeah, and this just goes to say, like, they're hiring people who. That's why I think it's this is another point. It's just like it's not just they're bad at the job. I don't even think they understand what their job is. Like,
You think they're there to flex on like how like what I mean, what do you think some of them think their job is?
Like I think they're there to just say what they think, and to, you know, what if that involves them like spilling out their righteous indignation and their hatred for the people they're supposed to work with, then they'll do that.
Yeah, right. I see.
It's like you're supposed to represent Israel and their interests. They take that as I'm Israeli and I'm gonna say what I think about this.
Yeah, I'm supposed to I'm here to promote my own interests, which align with Israel's. It's like, well, no, but if you're an optics guy, you're supposed to be optimizing for their interests over yours, right?
Yes.
Even if there is alignment, you don't go like, oh, our interests are aligned, and I'm not going to go through the whole example, but yeah, that's
no, I get it. Yeah, so I don't think they're clear on what their job is. That's how bad it is.
So you really like your whole plea here is just for more structure and evidence-based PR. And you think that would make a meaningful difference?
Yeah, I mean, here's another thing that doesn't even have to do this whole structure base. Some very basic standards I would set is you have to speak fluent English very clearly, and quickly. Like you can't, like if you look at that Avi Hyman guy, like he had that pause, but like if you look at some of his reports, like some of his press briefings, like he would talk very slowly. Like it was like he had an impediment or something. It was weird.
Normal, like fluent English.
Yeah, and in fluent English, and it has to flow. Like
that's
you're
with fluent. It can't be some weird janky slow. It needs to be like I couldn't tell. Yeah. You can have an accent. An accent's okay. A little bit of accent, not a big deal. But it has to be like I could conceivably be talking to someone who just like came from another country and grew up like in my neighborhood or something.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. At the very least, you have to have fluent English, and you have to know what your job is.
Yeah. Right.
Like, basic requirements.
Yeah. And then beyond that, I mean, there's a whole ton of things about like doing your due diligence, knowing how to actually like navigate situations like that. I mean, I would go even further and say ideally these people should know some like kind of basic stuff about like principles around how to debate.
Of course, yeah. But just it says to the sad state of affairs how like these two recommendations would even be mentioned.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Like the fact that I'm even mentioning this as like a policy change.
Yeah, if you were coaching fighters and you found yourself saying things like that, it's useful to like make contact with the opponent's body or something, you'd be like deeply worried about.
It's useful to not get knocked out. Like you have to understand. Like
yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah, I mean that's the sad state of affairs that it is. Like you have to even say this.
Right. Yeah. I don't know if I have anything else to say about this, but this has been interesting. So, we talked about like the firing of Alon and about like kind of evidence-based PR, how to improve things, how bad the PR is. Yeah, that was a good conversation. I don't know. Is there anything else you want to say?
Yeah. No, I think that's good. Yeah.
I may have turned on the recording in the last half if you want a recording.
Oh, yeah. If I'll see what you got.
Yeah, I'll send it over. I started at the Alon part because I could tell you were gonna go off on a whole fucking thing about him, so I was like, no, I'm just gonna run it just in case. Okay.
Oh, did you catch the Avi Hyman part?
Everything from when you sent me the Alon video. So yeah, that all.
The Avi Hyman video, you mean?
Sorry, I got everything from I think the Alon tweet. Did I start?
Oh, okay, good.
I definitely have the whole Avi part.
I'll see what you got. Yeah. I'll probably upload that. Actually, it was a good conversation.
Yeah, I mean, it could be something like, oh, sorry, I'll stop this recording.